have secondary with some more fatigue tools in Altar of Fire, which I would have to imagine is for Priest, whereas the tertiary has a lot of greedy cards, such as Envoy Rustwicks and second Twisting Nether, which I would imagine is for maybe the greedier Rush Warriors out there. So we are getting into game 1 now, which is of course necessarily the primary deck for both players. And from DawN, I kind of want to see the Spirit Jailer get tossed. I love it. It's a 1-drop on 1, but it's just so useless in this matchup.
I guess, yeah, you have few ways to actually do 1 extra damage, because my thought process is if they're playing Treants, then you want to have, or Glowflies, 2/2s basically, you want to have a way to deal 1 extra damage, but thinking through the Warlock list, there really isn't all that much that actually does that, so why not? I'm on board too.
And for blitzchung, doesn't quite have the guaranteed card draw, but a lot of chances to find it off of Nature Studies.
Ooh. That's a tough choice, actually.
It's really close, right?
Yeah.
Honestly, I thought there were merits for all of those, even
Yeah.
though the Nourish looked extremely slow. Like, having guaranteed follow-up is something worth noting, because you do expect the Warlock to have the answer for maybe your first couple waves.
Yeah, it feels pretty bad to play 6 mana draw 3 when you can play that card and do 3 mana draw 3, or I suppose 2 mana draw 3 as it was back in the day in this instance. And now things are looking exactly like the disaster scenario I was setting out for DawN. It's this early explosion onto the board that is going to be extremely difficult to follow up against.
He does have Void Drinker, however, and next turn we could see potentially the Spirit Jailer come down or Soul Shear, and so he could have that 7/8 hit the board, but again, without School Spirits, it's looking tough. Hysteria is not often that effective against Token Druid because they tend to build symmetrical boards, although maybe DawN can force it in such a way that blitzchung cannot play around both Hysteria and School Spirits.
I'm kind of looking at philosophy, actually. You could, well, potentially buff the Spirit Jailer, but I'm actually just looking at buffing the Void Drinker, getting it to an 8/9 and get 2 of them in hand. Like, big taunts are still kind of difficult for Druid to deal with without Savage Roar in their arsenal. Getting up to high attack values is basically reserved for purely Arbor Up, which may not be in hand.
That's certainly interesting. I kind of like where your head's at. We were talking about how DawN needs to find ways to pressure blitzchung, not just remove. So if blitzchung does miss out on 1 turn of board development, then I could see the double Void Drinkers getting there.
Looks like we're setting up for not only the play of the Glowfly Swarm, but also due to the Discovered Bloom, drawing Innovate, drawing the second Lightning Bloom here, Soul of the Forest as well. This has to be too much for a Warlock to deal with. Even with literally 0 mana available next turn for blitzchung, this is insurmountable.
It does look like too much. And so if he does, say, remove the most damage on board, which means 1 Glowfly and the Death Rattle under it, that's the way to stay alive in the meantime, but it's only going to be for a couple turns.
Oh, man. This is a true APAC game here. Token Druid, and it's over in about 7 minutes. That's exactly what I'm here for.
It's just the nature of Soul of the Forest. It's such a unique card in Hearthstone in that it buffs in such a way that it's resistant against very specific types of AoE. And you don't really see that from most classes in a way being able to deal with 2 layers of board. It's pretty much just Demon Hunter that can do that with 1 card at the moment with Immolation Aura. For every other class, their AoE is expensive to deal with a wide board, but not a board with insurance.
And for blitzchung now, the only question, I suppose, first of all, is whether you trade, and then secondly, how do you trade? And honestly, I think you could just get away with slamming it all face.
Yep. No mana, no problem.
Oh,
even less decisions.
And now Void Drinker, I mean, as I was saying, I still think this is the premier game plan for DawN. It sucks that he was just not allowed to play Hearthstone this game, but that's the matchup. That's why you bring Token Druid. Some of the time, it just does this.
Yep. I mean, but he still has to play a Void Drinker
Oh,
to
for
stay
sure.
alive.
Yeah.
And in some worlds, blitzchung's hand is complete air. To be fair, there's nothing super high impact at the moment. Oh, seconds. So he can just get down by. He can just get over the line by beating on the door of DawN's castle with nothing but 2/2s.
Yeah, I'm looking at if there's a way you can get lethal this turn with like Solar, Luna, and then Adorable Infestation. I think maybe you're 1 off then? Oh, 1 mana off?
I do think it's a little bit short, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's 12 right now, and then the Adorable is 1 more. So 1 mana off of the hero power.
Yeah.
You're exactly right. But I don't think that's a problem whatsoever for blitzchung. Warlock does not have that much healing all at once compared to, say, OTK Demon Hunter. They have incremental healing with Drain Souls and this Soul Fragments. But blitzchung's biggest fear here, honestly, should just be like another Void Drinker, which he can easily beat.
Exactly. I'm trying to work through if there was any way that you could sequence that for lethal there. Like if you go Luna Solar instead of Solar Luna, so that you can then double up the Adorable Infestation. I think it was just 1 damage or 1 mana short, no matter how you go for it there. But interesting little puzzle, nonetheless. And while it's an interesting crossword puzzle on a Sunday morning here for blitzchung, it's an absolute cascading disaster here for DawN because he is Omega dead.
Well, that's why they named the card that way.
Yeah.
Well, he can lethal himself. I guess this is a great chance for me to correct my mistake from the other day, where if you tap, go to 0, and immediately draw a fragment, you're not in fact dead.
Great! What a result! Everything's coming up DawN. Yeah. Sad to see it, but I think DawN's going to know this better than anyone, as he will have been practicing the matchup, getting some advice from anyone who's played it as much as possible, giving him the best possible chance of overcoming this matchup, which is just undeniably, as you can see there, a pretty rough matchup. That was about as bad as it can go, in all honesty. It's not usually going to be quite so disastrous, but it gives you a good idea of what to expect.
It's really miserable, and honestly, the only way you answer that type of board with the Soul of the Forest is to have double School Spirits, but then that's accounting for them not having turboed out the combo, which means that you would have 6 mana to even respond at that point. It's just so much that you need to ask for to survive against that deck, and it is really unlikely, I think, that DawN can get it done even with the second time, but who knows, maybe blitzchung gets one of those token Druid draws where they can't do anything themselves.
And that's what I think you're really looking for. It's not so much about what the Warlock is drawing, it's, again, about what the Druid is drawing. And so DawN, again, is going to be looking for, as you said, a mixture of the best removal spells, like School Spirits primarily, but maybe some of the 3 damage, 2 mana spells. But for the most part, I think just looking for threats to try and swing the tide after, hopefully, what is a less powerful start for the Druid.
And we'll see if that's true, but I'm already seeing the Fungal Fortunes in the opener for blitzchung. The difference is no coin. That is something worth noting. And DawN does have at least 1 School Spirits at the moment. That is an insta-keep. As for overall game plan, though, I'm still not sure if DawN should maybe even think about keeping the Void Drinker.
I have to be honest, I was pretty sure he would keep the Void Drinker. I was about to ask you if you keep Militia. I was way further down the line of just going like, okay, well, again, maybe you can just piece your way through to turn 6 and coin it out, because that's the kind of card that turns the tide, that locks the opponent out of the game if you get to that circumstance. Because the standard game plan, you are not winning. You have to get a little bit lucky. But in the end, I can respect throwing the Militia. I would have liked to have seen the, the big Void Drinker being kept, just because a big taunt is difficult for Druid to deal with. As I said, there's no Savage Roar left.
It's true, and also the School Spirits has synergy with it, and if you play it early, you can activate. In any case, blitzchung is chilling. No need to do anything too crazy with the Lunar Eclipse. This 1/3 is not a threat whatsoever. And DawN, I suppose, can either play Spirit Jailer or tap. I just want to see him hold on to coin to make the potential double School Spirits turn available even if he is, is on 5 mana. And that could be a thing now.
Very interesting. Of course, also paired up with a potential Venomous Scorpion for another AoE. It's a slower start for sure for blitzchung, but he's getting the kind of hand that can do similar things, even if not quite so powerful. Innovate Glowfly Swarm is strong. But with double School Spirits, this is definitely a game of Hearthstone we have here, not just an absolute massacre. Or make that 3 School Spirits.
I mean, DawN is singing the alma mater here. He is a true student of Scholomance, and that is absolutely the pick here. It's just so good, and it's something that blitzchung won't expect. He won't account for there being a third AoE of the shape that plain Glowflies with nothing but Soul of the Forest attached to them can die.
Does he account for one, though? Because if he just goes Innovate Glowfly Swarm and he is hit with the School Spirits, it's pretty bad, actually. He doesn't have that much powerful follow-up quite yet.
Yeah. But the thing is, without Lightning Bloom or another Innervate in hand, he's very far from being able to play the Glowfly plus a wide board development. That meaning Pride's Fury or Soul of the Forest. He has access now to a discovered Innervate, which is very interesting, though.
And so next turn he can go 4 mana Glowfly, potentially with the Lunar Eclipse as well. It doesn't change the maths on the mana cost there. And then he would be able to go Innovate, and just be short of Soul of the Forest. So he's still another turn away from actually getting it down with the Glowfly immediately.
Yeah, the Lunar would cost 1, then the Glowflies cost 3. Yes. Wait. Yeah, you're right. It would be 8 mana to do everything, and he would be on 7 with the Innervates, so... In any case, for DawN, it makes sense to just keep chugging along with the Scorpids. They're not too bad in terms of being able to threaten an individual minion from blitzchung. Even 1 or 2 trades can be the difference between blitzchung having lethal on that turn or the next.
Tough choice here. I'm again looking at Philosophy just to have a 2-4 imp instead of a 1-3. That's a big jump in terms of actually dealing with Treants. But I would, of course, be open to Cascading Disaster. With a Talon in hand, you can corrupt it once, potentially corrupt it again with whatever you draw off of your Talon as well. And again, that can be used to kill off Pride's Fury boards with relative ease.
It's really close because I do like the Philosophy because spend your mana, but that is a very simplified way of thinking. Because the Cascading Disaster, I feel, actually complements the kind of board DawN currently has quite well. Where if blitzchung plays 7 minions, the Scorpids can potentially deal with 2, and then if you upgrade the Cascading Disaster, suddenly the board looks manageable.
Interesting.
So a plain Arbor up here is the choice for blitzchung, which I find kind of a waste. That's the type of board that DawN can easily deal with Cascading Disaster, or even Soul Shear.
Right, and I think what blitzchung is saying here is, again, he's setting up for that turn I was laying out of going for Glowfly, Innovate, Soul of the Forest, but because he used the banked mana of the Nature Studies, he would be another turn away from it again at that point.
Yes.
But now that he's found Bloom, that changes things.
Because he found Bloom, I thought that he was supposed to do nothing at all, but it turns out here, blitzchung will still have the mana next turn to go for Glowfly plus Soul of the Forest. So he's kind of just setting up these 2 Treants as a bait for DawN to use whatever removal he has, and then blitzchung takes out the big guns. But it so happens that DawN has the answers, not to mention just a very clean Soul Shear turn if he wants it, or Talon. I kind of, for DawN's perspective, if you see Armor Up with nothing else attached to it, I'm not sure if you're supposed to expect that the hand is all buff cards, and that's why blitzchung had to use Arbor Up as his best board development, and because of that, you would go double Soul Shear, or if you expect that there's possibly Glowfly as a refill, and because of that, you go Talon.
But now that he didn't opt to clear the board with Soul Shears or School Spirits and trade, This becomes an interesting conundrum for blitzchung, because on one hand, you want to save the glowfly for when you do actually have an empty board and not waste any slots. So Thorn Growth, Bloom, Pride's Fury becomes interesting. But then you've played all your spells, so the glowfly just becomes a lot worse anyway.
I think this presents an opportunity to go for glowfly with Pride's Fury instead of Soul of the Forest, because that builds a board that lets him value trade down the Talon, have still the maximum amount of minions on board, and have them all at a very high HP. Yeah, they'll be at 5 health. The glowflies, that is. So that's actually surviving a double School Spirits, barring the 2 minions that can trade, of course.
Yeah, I like the look of that a lot. Going for the double
Of course, we are caster visioning that we do see the triple School Spirits here, though. So from blitzchung's perspective, going Soul of the Forest might be safer. Oh, okay.
I think it's just better. Like, again, you don't have to know that School of Spirits is in hand to know that that's what you should be afraid of.
True. Yeah, the only difference with the play is that he just completely emptied the board and then went for this, which is, you're right, just better. My play would have left more attack on board, but the 2 4/3s would have been at lower HP and left you even more susceptible to School Spirits. So, very nice play from blitzchung.
And it's going pretty wrong pretty quickly now, again for DawN, just showing that even if you do take your sweet time about it as the token druid, this is only turn 6 where the first real threat hits the board. And it's just looking too difficult for DawN to deal with. It's a turn away from Twisting Nether with the coin, if he even had it. Cascading Disaster only kills 2.
I do think he has to take that, though. Something like Cascading Disaster plus Soul Shear.
Yeah.
And then the trades. He can get rid of 3 Treants. And then he's taking 12 next turn. It doesn't feel great, but I feel he really needs to hold on to this coin for more flexibility, whether it be early Nether or a triple School Spirits turn.
Yeah, it looks like he's just going for the double School Spirits, trying to set up for the 3rd surprise School Spirits that he got off the Skull Pit as well.
Yeah. Using the ones that weren't created by as well.
Oh, man. And as
yeah,
as valiant as an effort of this was, blitzchung just ordered it too well. His cards were too perfect, and the Soul of the Forest on top of this is looking like a bit much for DawN to deal with. If he can survive the 2/2s on the following turn, then maybe he can clear up with the Drain Souls or just shooting them all individually. But that seems like a big ask.
I think this is what the turn looks like, though. School Spirits plus Cascading or a double Soul Shear. It hurts, obviously, but he's got no better choice.
And again, because the Arbor Up came down, blitzchung is limited in his attack buffs. Again, no Savage Roar, as I keep saying, mainly to remind us, more than the audience, that it's not in Druid's arsenal anymore.
And so for that, because of that, blitzchung is looking for the other cards that give him attack. That would be Power of the Wild or the other Pride's Fury. Or something off Nature Studies. Like a Moon Touched for 4 burst.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking at the amulet.
Adorable Infest could just be the Thorn Growth plus the Marcel plus Soul of the Forest.
That's so clean.
It's either Marcel or Hero Power, but I think most of the time the Marcel's going to survive, so it's already just as good as your Hero Power in terms of damage, plus the body on board.
It's the last chance for DawN to turn this one around. He's just dead on the following turn. He can Alexstrasza himself and hope that that's enough to survive if there's no attack buffs.
Yeah.
And
I think for DawN, if you saw that turn from blitzchung, I think it's pretty safe to assume that if he had any attack buffs, he would immediately play it. So in terms of discoveries, you could put blitzchung on maybe having gotten card draw but not played it yet, or something like Moon Touched, which is burst from hand. Ooh.
Hamzin works with the Soul Shears. Unfortunately, Cascading Disaster is not a shadow spell.
Yeah, and unfortunately the Soul Shear is not Drain Soul, so he's not immediately healing. But he does take 2 off the board, which means that blitzchung has 9 remaining, and then the Armor Bender takes him up to 15. And so he's 1 off with the Moon Touch and Hero Power? Okay, that's lethal.
But that is just exact lethal now, I think, if we were counting correctly. 9, 1, 14, 15. I count lethal.
Me too. It looked like DawN might have a small window to try and pull it back there. I say small because even though if he had survived this turn, let's say blitzchung drew something useless off the top, what was DawN's follow-up? The board was just death by 1,000 cuts, turn after turn.
And there it is. It's heartbreaking for DawN to go out at this point because he got such a long way with the deck that I honestly believed was just going to go 0-2 this week, if I'm being brutally honest. Like, Warlock was just not well positioned in this metagame, but he did an incredibly good job of getting through to the semi-finals this week. And even though I'm sure he feels sad to go down now, he can hold his head higher because that is a disastrous matchup. Something incredibly lucky has to happen for you to have even a chance.
Right, and maybe if you could build a secondary with Hellfires in it, that could help alongside the School Spirits, but nobody had Token Druid on their mind going into this Specialist weekend, which, you know, despite us kind of hating on the deck here and there, despite it having not the greatest win rate in Conquest, from blitzchung's perspective, if nobody expected it, that might just be a very brilliant bring here. I'm still hesitant to call it that outright because I don't think the matchup against Rush Warrior is all that good, but blitzchung did manage to take the win there, and he is quite obviously building boards with the opponent's removal options in mind, which is the most important thing for playing Token Druid next to the mulligan.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think blitzchung has just been playing some incredibly strong Token Druid. I've disagreed with very, very little that he's done this entire series, or really the entire weekend, at which point he's 4-0 now, only half of which we've actually been able to see in